लग रहा है। Thank you.
Baik, Kak. Pertama udah masuk. Bu Isana. Because my colleague from Orawa would like to join.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, there are some people online, right?
Tes, 1, 2, 3. Ya. Ada suaranya.
1, 2, 3,
Ya.
check.
Right. Shall we? Belum. Nah. Okay then. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Consulate General of Indonesia. And then in this special moment, I think we would like to, first of all, I would like to greet and welcome my dear colleagues, my dear friend, Bapak Marius Kurteno. I think I call you Bapak. Bapak Indonesia means sir.
Yes.
No thing, because we still his time for the whole day since morning. So that's why I told Marius, I think, no, he's Indonesian. No, I convert him to Indonesian now. So again also, and I would like also to thank you to all participants here, I think, offline and also online, who joined, I think, at this event. I think this is very special event for all of us. It's been months for us, right? To prepare this event. How we can attract more students and more young Indonesian, to get to know about the opportunity. And then what we would like to highlight today, I think, is this is about what I'm calling as a game changer or the opportunity for all Indonesians who live in Canada. I know that many of you, when you come to Canada, on the top of everybody's minds, only Vancouver, Toronto. But how many of you think about like other city, like Yukon, Northwestern, Manitoba, and many places? Not many, right? So that's why today I give you new experience, new horizon to get to know. There's another opportunity in other areas we so-called the Yukon territory. Maybe, I don't know also how many of you here, I think, who has been to Yukon. Maybe could you raise your hand?
I think that's a bit too challenging. I would have started. How many of you heard about Yukon?
Yeah, that's right. How many of you heard about Yukon? 1, 2, okay then. Yeah, most of you. So one question, what do you heard about Yukon?
Very cool.
Cool, see, cold weather. Mostly on their mind, always Yukon very relevant to cold and weather, extreme weather. So, but today, someone with us, Marius, will change our mind, will trigger your mind, how to change the mindset. You can see now the weather, everything, it's not an obstacle, but it depends on us. Are we ready to explore the opportunity? Are we ready to get to know something that we could do or live better? So this is opportunity for all of us. And then I think through this event, I would like to see in the future more Indonesian travel to Yukon. You need to see first. You can feel, and then you gain the experience. That's we so-called the connection, the connectivity. But today, at the first stage, Mr. Marius will bring your mind to Yukon. And then I think it might be good, I think, Pak Marius, to share with my colleagues here, either online and offline, because one of our responsibility at the consulate is how to empower either our people in Indonesia, human resources development, Indonesia and Canada, our diaspora, to get better life, better opportunity, better work, and better future. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor, I think, give the line to my colleague, Pak Marius. Please, Pak.
Thank
The
you so
line is
much,
yours.
Consul General. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you so much for you coming, taking time to join us in this presentation. And thank you to all the people who are watching on streaming on their computers today. And I would like to thank your team who was so wonderful, especially Gracia here, who has been working with my team in Whitehorse, not only for this event, but also, I don't know if I can disclose, but Indonesia and Yukon are in the process of signing an MOU on labor mobility, making it easier for workers from Indonesia to work in Yukon. And thank you for having me here today. So it's a pleasure, and I would like to use this session today in a very informal way, in the sense that if anybody has any questions, I don't mind to be interrupted and try to answer to the best of my abilities. So first, my first question was, how do you say hello in Indonesian? And they said, hello. So hello, my first Indonesian word. Earlier, I was asking, how do you say cheers?
Salam.
Salam, they said cheers,
Cheers,
but
yeah.
salam. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to jump into the presentation in the sense that before I actually will go with the presentation, and I'm going to flip through some slides faster than others because I don't think they're so much relevant to today's presentation. But the first question was, how many of you heard of Yukon before coming to today's presentation here? Before coming. So you heard about Yukon. Sorry, sir. What did you hear about Yukon?
Michael.
Michael. Okay. Hi, Michael. Very cold. Anything else? Northern Lights. Very pretty. Yukon, it's actually one of those things, if you go throughout the world, it's on people's bucket list. You know, before I die, I want to go to Yukon, kind of things, right? So I don't know why Yukon doesn't use that as a marketing tool. Before you die, you must go to Yukon. It's probably, I'm gonna say openly, I used to live in Vancouver. I used to actually I graduated from Simon Fraser University. I lived in Prince George. I lived in Lethbridge. I lived in Calgary. I lived in, where else I lived? Vancouver. And now I live in Yukon. Without any doubt, Yukon is the best kept secret in Canada. People ask, how come you don't market the program as other Newfoundland and Labrador? Probably everybody's seen those beautiful videos of Newfoundland and Labrador, you know, the Scottish music with the ocean and right? Probably one of why you guys don't do the same thing? It's because we don't need. We have an influx of people who come to Yukon, mostly because of the jobs. Okay, and that's the reality. Like, if you live in the most beautiful place in the world and you are unemployed, I guarantee you that's not a fun place to be. So there are lots of jobs, there are lots of opportunities. And in today's presentation, I'm going to try to change some of your perspective or myth. I'm just gonna say this. When I moved from Calgary to Yukon, I didn't buy any thicker clothes jackets than I used to have in Calgary. And that's the truth. I would say winter is long in the sense that it starts sometimes in October and ends probably April. But the temperatures are not very different than Prince George, BC, minus 20, 25. You're gonna have probably a week of minus 30, about a week of minus 30 when it is cold. But if this is the only downside of living in Yukon, a week of 30, believe me, I can do it standing on my head with one hand behind my back, if for the rest of the time is a great place to live. So I'm just gonna go, if somebody could monitor a bit the presentation, and we'll go to the first slide. In my one of my previous lives, I used to teach at Yukon University and Lethbridge College. And I usually like to stand up and move around, but I realized this is a broadcast kind of session, so I will try to stay still. So Yukon economy is it's in the midst of a robust expansion, especially fueled by the booming mineral prices. So mining is one of the main industries in Yukon, mineral exploration. Right now, Yukon has the lowest unemployment in Canada. And this has been for, I'm gonna say for at least about a year, has the lowest unemployment in Canada, around 2.3%, and also the highest employment participation. Another thing with Yukon that I wanted to say is that Yukon has not only what we call the traditional the traditional minerals, copper, zinc, gold, silver, but it's got about and I hope I'm not mistaken when I say about 25 of the 30-some, 32, I think, new minerals. And what are the new minerals? Are the minerals that are used in electric car batteries, missiles, microchips, and so on and so forth. 25 of those minerals, they are in Yukon. Now, everybody heard about climate change, right? And we know that the world is affected by climate change. Indonesia being an island or multiple islands is going to be probably affected in some way. But the climate change for the North, the permafrost that made it very difficult in the past to drill is melting. So that means it makes it more easier for companies to conduct mineral exploration at cheaper cost, which makes it effective in the long run. So that's going to have a huge, huge impact. So as I said, unemployment rate lowest in Canada, workforce participation one of the highest in Canada, the main industries mining and tourism. We can move to the next slide. Yukon is leading which is by the way surprising maybe to some of you, but it's actually Yukon who's leading the country in population growth. 12.1% from now. Yukon is the size of France. France has about 70 million people. Yukon has 40,232. Probably some neighborhoods in Kuala Lumpur and Jakarta are bigger than Yukon. Okay, just to visualize it, imagine all Yukoners participating in a baseball game in Toronto, and half of the stadium is still empty. just to put it in perspective. So Yukon, as I said, it's growing. There are multiple mines that are fueling the growth. Victoria Gold is very well known. There are two new mines that are in the process of opening. One is Casino Mine, and the other one, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it. It's a First Nation name. And of course, the Faro mine remediation, that still it's creating lots of employment. The GDP growth, it's about right now 11.1%. And mining, it contributes about 12% to the Yukon's GDP. Tourism is also probably the second most significant industry in Yukon. So for people who are interested in tourism, definitely. There are about 400,000 tourists that pass through Yukon every summer. I'm not talking about the tourists in winter, but about 400,000 of them, mostly Americans, mostly going from United States to Alaska, or from Alaska going to United States. So why I'm saying this is because there is lots of opportunity. Some of you are gonna complete degree programs or some programs, and you might pursue employment within government and so on and so forth. But some of you, actually, any of you kind of entrepreneurial, thinking of, if I'm gonna stay in Canada, I would like to start my own business. Any of you? No? Yeah. You want to start a business? No, everybody was looking towards you. I want to say, so don't blame me. Everybody was looking towards you. So, but anyway, why I'm saying this is because if you go to the next slide, the best Canadian city to start a small business, according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. Which do you no? Okay, the cat is out of the hat. So I was very surprised myself when I read it, because most people would say, "Oh, no, it's Vancouver, it's Toronto, it's Calgary." No, actually, now you can go to the next slide. The best city is actually Whitehorse. So according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, published in the Financial Post, Whitehorse is the best place to start a small business. CFIB takes a regular look at Canada's urban communities and how well they mesh with the interest of local business owners. Seeking which ones work best, 125 largest urban centers were assessed in 2019, so that's pre-pandemic, and comparing them with 13 metrics, such as self-employment demographics, small business sentiment, local taxation, regulatory policy, and Whitehorse was #1 city. So that's why I'm saying, if anybody is thinking starting a business in a pro-entrepreneurial, pro-business location, Yukon or Whitehorse is the place to be. And I have how many ever went to Whitehorse or Yukon? Nobody traveled. Okay, when I came, I used to work for Alberta government previously, and I was in a very stressful position. The department was called Labor Attraction, traveled throughout the world. And sometimes I wouldn't even know where I was. I would write my reports in airports and so on and so forth. So eventually I moved to Whitehorse. And I felt that I was in a 24/7 holiday, relaxing, lay back. No, serious. It was very peaceful. Yukon has the cleanest air in the world. cleanest water in the world. And it's a bit of a laid-back type of the place to be, raise a family, start a business. It feels like home. I don't know. Have you had that feeling? Do you have this feeling here in Vancouver? Like, I'm home? In Yukon, that's exactly how I felt when I got there. I'm like, that's what I want to be. This is really good. From a more entrepreneurial business perspective, I'm saying this. Always I imagine the first pioneers, colonialists, coming to North America and moving from east, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Okay, we're gonna call them pioneers. And they're moving, right? And they're coming across new places. And imagine those people reaching the Pacific, California, right? What was California at that time? Lots of trees, water, nice weather, I imagine. I don't know, I'm imagining things. Some of them, they were like, oh my God, another water, another ocean, more trees. Others, they said, wow, the possibilities, the limitless possibilities. I see Yukon and Whitehorse, like those pioneers many, many decades ago, where there are so many possibilities. The sky is the limit. I could talk for hours about this, but we're gonna keep moving to the next slide. And the contribution of immigration to Yukon, as you see, is growing exponentially. The number of Yukon residents who are immigrants increased from about 3,000 in 2006 to over 4,500 in 2016. And that represents a 46.5% increase in about, 10 years? So we still expect, according to the Conference Board of Canada, by 2030, so 2030 is what, in 7 years from now? Almost 100% of all new entrants into the Canadian labor market is going to be from immigrants. So there is a great opportunity. There are great opportunities, doesn't matter what. And I'm gonna say not only in Canada, but in lots of the North America, Western Europe, where in order to keep the economy growing, you need new people, new talent, new innovation, new perspective. So 100%, almost 100% of new entrants into the Canadian labor market is gonna come from people like you. I'm just trying to skim through my notes to see what's interesting. The number of Yukon residents who are not permanent residents of Canada increased from 195 in 2006 to 435 in 2016, an increase of 123%. So non-permanent residents, this include people who move from other jurisdictions to Yukon and enter into the labor market. Yukon, when I started working for the immigration department in Yukon, they had 180 allocations. Now there are 430, and we are expecting the allocations to increase to about 600. Just to put it in perspective, I think Northwest Territories has about 300 allocations. So the increase to 600 for us, hopefully by next year, it's a reflection of the booming economy. You can move to the next slide. So I just wanted I know all of you are going to school here. I hope you are happy, but I wanted to include a couple of slides about Yukon University. So 2 years ago, Yukon College, where I had the privilege to teach for a number of years, business programs, uh, um, is now the Yukon University, the most northern university in Canada. Great place. That's kind of the campus with, you see the buildings in the back there, student housing, excellent accommodations. And there's a sea, forest, surrounded by beautiful forests and trails and so on and so forth. So I understand lots of you going to universities in BC, Okanagan, paying an arm and a leg. Yukon University is going to be probably one of the cheapest type of university, except Harry's university here, just for the full disclosure, but outside the mainland. So Yukon University, very reasonable fees, and some of the benefits. Great pathway opportunity for immigration through the Yukon nominee program. So you know that international students, they get a postgraduate work permit. And because during the university, you will be able to work. And as I said, I was talking with my friend who's the director of labor market programs. And of course, his job is to promote employment for Canadians. And of course, I'm not saying, I tell him, listen, I never promote anything. I don't need to. The employers are promoting my programs. So, but if all Yukoners, and in every society, doesn't matter where you go, a certain percentage of the population will never be working. Addictions, mental health, disabilities, yada, yada, yada. So, and that percentage varies from country to country, from place to place. So if all Yukoners would be working, of working age, would be working, we still have about 1,500 jobs that are not being filled. So doesn't matter from what direction you look. So when I came to Yukon, the Filipino community was about 50 Filipinos. Most of them came as living caregivers, and then they start bringing their families, and they grew, and now they're about 10% of Whitehorse population. So they're close to about 4,000. 99% of them, they came through the nominee program. All right. So always when people from yes, but they're from tropics, and Yukon is, if the Filipinos were able to settle there and acclimatize with Yukon, anybody can do it. And why they did it is because they love to work. They send money back home. They buy places, they buy houses, they buy land, and they like fishing, hunting, and all of them, they have toys, the snowmobiles, the RVs, and they enjoy life. And that's what Yukon is about. You can stay here, pay the mortgage for $1 million house that you're gonna live it to inherit it to your children, or you can move to Yukon and enjoy life. That's bottom line. So lowest tuition fees for international students to Canadian universities. Outdoor opportunities to explore Yukon, pristine nature, and rich First Nation cultures. There are 14 First Nations, of which 12 of them, they sign agreements with the federal and territorial government. Small class sizes, 20, 30 people. The professors, instructors know your name, and lots of opportunity for and very, very high tech, very modern facilities. Many of campus jobs, I just said about that, highest wages. When I moved, I did my graduate studies. Towards my end of my graduate studies, which is economics, I got a job as an instructor at Yukon College. At that time was Yukon College, and my professor said, Marius, can I ask you a question? I know it's not very Canadian, but can I ask you a question? How much you gonna make there? And I told her how much I was going to make, and she said, oh my God. And by the way, she had 2 PhDs from a London School of Economics and some university called Harvard in the States, if you heard about it. So she had 2 PhDs, and long story short, I was making more than her. Okay, and I just had a master's degree with no teaching experience. So lots of opportunities. And what I see with lots of the nominees is they go through the nominee process, they get their PR, and right now there is a huge vacancy, especially during COVID, and that's it just struck me. That's why we have such a huge shortage in spite of growing numbers, is because COVID, what happened is the Yukon government could not hire. So lots of the nominees who got their PR, who are working for the hospital, pushing a cart with medicine, who were working for some security company, they were working as a middle manager at Canadian Tire. All of them, they got jobs with Yukon government. So there is that opportunity that you will not have it anywhere, where as soon as you get your PR, to make the jump into the government or some high level company in mining. Let's say you're going to have to spend many years at some entrance level position. So it fast-tracked your career opportunity. That's what Yukon is going to do it. Now, some of you might choose to get your PR and then go somewhere else. God bless you. Be happy. But some of you, you're going to be like, you know what? This is a great place. That guy that we saw a couple of years ago at the Indonesian consulate was not lying, right? So we'll see. So those are some of the thank you so much, Consul General. And we can move to the next. And here are some of the programs that are offered through the Yukon University. By the way, all the programs are how to say, they're recognized by the federal government. All of you, you would get, after the completion, a postgraduate worker permit. So aviation management, business administration, culinary arts, early learning, lots and lots of jobs in childcare field. Most of our nominees, especially the skilled nominees, they come as childcare workers. I know 2 nominees, as soon as they got their PR, they started their own daycares. By the way, do you know how much childcare worker is paid in Yukon? $31 per hour, per every single hour, not per day. Different country, different continent. But earth sciences, indigenous governments, and you know, with indigenous governments now, it's not just the First Nations. Thank you. Not just the First Nations, but all over the world. New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia. They have indigenous population that the same ideas can be applied. Liberal arts, multimedia. We can move to the next one. And the next one. Northern Outdoor Environmental Studies. This is for somebody, let's say they plan to start their own tourism company, right? Guiding company and so on and so forth. Office administration, of course, it's a favorite of international students. Bang, postgraduate work permit, bang, into the labor market. Very easy peasy. The office administration. You'll never be unemployed in Canada with an office administration certificate or diploma. Always there is going to be a place for you. Renewable resources management. So as you can see, some of them, they're transferable towards a degree. Science and visual arts. As I said, I used to work there. I know the president very well. And I said, until you are going to have computer science or MBA program, don't call yourself a university. No, I didn't say that to her, but something on that line. So the Yukon, next slide, the Yukon nominee program. So as you can see, I'm not going to go by the slides. I'm just going to say, first of all, from a practical perspective, as I said, I used to work for Alberta government, and I remember one time I was asked to do a presentation in Jasper. And I think there were about, I'm not going to exaggerate, about 300 people in a room of this size. And I remember having to move back because they were moving forward. And in the whole room, there were probably Filipinos, mostly Filipinos, some East Indians, probably a couple of people from maybe I'm going to say Africa. And in the front, right in the front, there were two white guys with blonde hair sitting there. And you could see it from their eyes that were kind of, what's happening here? So I said, guys, do you know why you are here? And they were like, no, but the looks, we are kind of interested in what's happening. I said, those, by the accent, I realized they were Australians. So I said, what happened to you guys is you saw all these pretty ladies coming into this building and you just follow them. And they start laughing, and that's exactly it. That I said, no, it's not going to be a party here. It's about the temporary foreign work program and so on and so forth. So they left. But one thing I was going to say, in most jurisdictions like BC, Alberta, Ontario, only a certain number of allocations are allotted towards semi-skilled workers. So those are workers from NOC, C, and D, people working in restaurants, in hotels, and so on and so forth, right? In Yukon, we don't have a limit. So if the labor market requires 430 individuals to work in NOC, C, and D, so be it. The numbers are I guess they're driven by the labor market needs. So in BC, probably now I think their allocations are around 10,000. Probably maybe 1,000 are allocated to NOC, C, and D. At that presentation, when I start talking about the nominee program, a temporary foreign work program, and I said, Alberta has only, at that time, I think there were only about, out of 5,000, only about 500 allocated for NOC, C, and D. And the allocations were based on the size of the business. So let's say you have a restaurant, a McDonald's, it's got 100 seats. Probably you would get one front counter attendant and one person in the kitchen. When I said that, the room was absolutely quiet. You could drop a pin and then people start crying. Like not crying, like crying, like howling, right? Because they knew that they knew somebody from their coworkers who already got nominated, and they knew that it's not going to happen to them, which was heartbreaking, right? So why I'm saying this story is because In Yukon, we do not have a limited number for certain occupations like other jurisdictions. The process is very simple, okay? And it's very transparent in the sense that the employer advertises the job. All jobs must be advertised through the job bank, right? So if you look on the job bank, you see all the jobs available in Yukon. You apply, and a couple of things are very important. One, if you, in your cover letter, you indicate I'm a foreign national, I'm on a postgraduate work permit valid from so-and-so. My interest is staying in Canada, in Yukon. In the cover letter, put something about why Yukon. And then, of course, talk about experience and so on and so forth, but indicate those things that I am in Canada, so the employer doesn't have to wait for you to come from some foreign country. Indicate that you are on a postgraduate work permit, or I'm a visitor, or whatever is your status, and I'm ready, available to come and start work immediately in Canada. Like everywhere else in Canada, housing is a significant issue. If you already have some kind of housing arrangement, a friend, whatever, it's again very important to indicate that in your cover letter, because now you removed all the barriers for the employer to say, oh my God, what am I going to, usually employers, they find housing for individuals, but if you remove that aspect, you're making it more easier for you. So the jobs have to be advertised on the job bank. There is one program that employers don't need to advertise. It's called the Yukon Community Pilot. It's unique. I'm going to talk later on about that particular stream. The employer advertises. They cannot find a Canadian worker. They decide to hire you. All our applications are online. We are just launching now. We are moving from paper to digital. It's going to be online, very easy, very transparent. You know exactly where your application is in terms of processing. Of course, you contact the employer, you have the interview. At that moment, what happens is, our program, of course, the nominee program is LMI exempt, so there are no fees, there is no cost, there is no cost for you. And by the way, definitely have all the respect to immigration consultants, but I've seen too many times when immigration consultants take advantage of individuals, especially young people like you, with exorbitant fees for very little work that you yourself can do it. Believe me, if you are able to go to a program, educational program, you will be able to fill out the application online. Once you are approved, the application, and by the way, the processing is very fast with the Yukon Omni program. Right now was about 8 weeks. I'm gonna say now that's going to be online is gonna be less than that. I'm gonna say around 4 weeks. So it's fast. At that moment, you get a letter from us saying congratulations, and you get a work permit, right? Now, also in the letter, if you have dependents, you know who are your dependents, right? Spouse and children, not mom and dad. Like in Indonesia, of course, the family, it's mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, uncles, cousins. But here is just the principal applicant, spouse, and children under the age of 21. They are included in the letter. To apply online right now, I think last I've seen, applying online for a work permit is about 153 days, right? Long time. The federal government is aware about that, and they are working on reducing, because they are basically responding to the pressures from employers who say, I need that person to start working tomorrow, not 153 days from now. So they are expediting this process. In the past, what I suggested to individuals is just go to a port of entry, apply for the work permit right there on the spot, especially if you already had the medical done, right? Because especially some people, they come here, they don't have the medical. Just go do to an assigned medical physician, do your medical, ask the physician to put your name into the system. So when you go to the border, the CBSA officer sees that you already started your medical, and they will issue you a work permit on the spot. Of course, there are various categories. You know now that visitors can apply for work permit within Canada. So it's very, very easy now for visitors to apply for work. If you have friends back home, hey, just come as a visitor, especially if you are in one of the occupations in demand in Canada, anything that has to do with healthcare, anything that has to do with the tourism industry, hospitality industry, you'll get a job even here in Vancouver. The only problem here in Vancouver is, and my problem is, with the temporary foreign work program, right? So the temporary work program, as I said, I work in Alberta, and believe me, I've seen enough abuse for the rest of my life, okay? Where employers use the program to basically jump, and the person would have to say how high. I've seen it from violence to sexual abuse to numerous issues. So with the temporary, that's why I in Yukon, the temporary foreign work program is not very much utilized. And the reason is because imagine you two working for the same employer, you going through the nominee program, so you know exactly what's going to happen ahead. You're going to get permanent residency probably within a year and a half. And you having to complete 2 years of temporary foreign work program, not knowing what's happening. So it creates almost like two classes of individuals within the same workplace. Maybe Vancouver is big, it's large, but Yukon is very small. And my preference always was, if you know you need this person, you need their skills, why to drag your feet through many years of uncertainty? Now, I'm not saying some people, they prefer the temporary foreign work program. I'm going to work there and I would like to go back home, right? That's fine. But when your intention from very beginning is staying permanently in Canada, I think the nominee program, the programs that offer a path towards permanent residency, they seem to be more adequate. So you get the letter, let's say, depending, you can apply online or you go to a port of entry, you get your work permit, you start working. Now, Yukon is the only jurisdiction in Canada that we sign a tripartite agreement. A tripartite agreement between the nominee, the employer, and the representative of Yukon government, where all your rights and responsibilities, and I brought a couple, I didn't bring too many. Thanks God I didn't bring too many because I lost my bag. And, you know, I would have probably had them in the bag. So I brought a couple of some of the brochures working in Yukon, and everybody, this tripartite agreement gets one of these booklets where basically you know exactly what are your rights and responsibility as a nominee, which basically is you have the same rights and responsibilities like any other Canadian worker, with the exception that you are mandated to work only for the employer that's on your work permit. But in terms of rights and responsibility, exactly the same when it comes to pay, when it comes to holidays, overtime, and so on and so forth. So this agreement is a legally bound agreement between the employer, our office, and you. So you know very clearly where you are, what's your wages. And by the way, with Yukon nominee program, we mandate that employers must pay you median wages. So if you look at the job bank, you will see all wages, they are like low, median, and high, right? We mandate employers when they advertise and they hire nominees, they would pay median wages. And of course, what this policy did in long run, it contributed to increasing wages in Yukon in general, right? So, and of course, I brought a couple of things which I really liked. Why Yukoners are the happiest people in Canada.
Like you.
You like me? Yeah, what's not to be happy? You know. We signed this tripartite agreement. Once the tripartite agreement, you can apply for permanent residency. Basically, the next day, you can apply for permanent residency. There are other jurisdictions where they say you have to work for the employer for a minimum of 6 months before they nominate you, correct? Right? Not in Yukon. In Yukon, once you get nominated, you can apply for permanent residency. And of course, permanent residency process is a federal government responsibility. It varies from country to country and situation, right? Also, with the nominee program, we also conduct monitoring. So basically, we send you confidential email. How are things at work? Do you get paid the wages that were agreed, and so on and so forth? So we try to be proactive and avoid any kind of workplace abuse that I'm sure you probably heard, read in the paper about sometimes unscrupulous employers taking advantage of foreign workers. Not in Yukon. We are proactive, as I said. You tell us if we identified any situation immediately, we investigate, we have a chat with the employer, and lots of the times employers will apologize. They will, because they know they can't survive without the nominee program. And not very often, but yeah, it did happen a couple of times where they were not paid for overtime or minimum hours the employers must make sure that the nominees get is 35 hours per week, full-time. There is no negotiations about that. Language, 2 requirements for the nominee program, the most important. One is the language, which is for NOC CND CLB level 4. CLB is translated from IELTS or CELPIP or some. Those are the two tests that we recognize. Level 4 or level 6 for skilled workers. And the second is education. You must have minimum high school and minimum 6 months experience in the job you are applying for, which could be semi-skilled worker, or as we call it, critical impact worker, or skilled worker a year. Those are the only requirements. And when I hear people, oh, it's so complicated. What's so complicated? Tell me. Do you speak the English? Yes, I do. Do you have some experience? Yes, I do. Then what's so complicated about that? Some people, they say it's very easy. Say, oh, I'm going to Yukon because the Yukon nominee program, it's easy. I don't think it's easy. I think it's fair, right? The employer needs somebody with your skills. Here it is. I do have all the requirements. That's great. Let's start working. I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's difficult. I don't think it's complicated. I think it's transparent. I think it's fair. And for me, the most important thing was nominees to feel respected, to feel that are contributing to the Yukon economy, to have fun. Because always when I talk to nominees, I say, you'll get your PR. Everybody obsesses. As soon as they apply for permanent residency, they obsess. When am I gonna get my PR? How, like, relax, because you'll never come to a situation like that where you are in this state, it's kind of, I don't have mortgages, I don't have this, I'm waiting for my PR. This is the best time. That's your time. Focus on yourself. Learn the language. By the way, do you know that Canada is bilingual, right? French. Learn French. It will help you with your career. Learn to make sushi. I don't know. Learn something. Have fun. Learn how to ski. All right. Read a book. I don't know. Something that to you in your daily life, you don't do it. Use this opportunity to improve yourself. I would love to have this opportunity when I was younger, to a year and a half, just for myself. So we can move the slides, my friend. Sorry. It's very easy. Yeah, Yukon government, and it's gonna take you to immigration, or you just Google Yukon nominee program. I think at the end I have something there.
Yeah.
So we can move through the slides because I spoke. Let's go back a bit. Yukon business. So here you go. Some of you might say, you know what? My mom and dad have $300,000 that's sitting there doing nothing. The Yukon Business Nominee Program, it's a great way to get your PR in Canada. Minimum investment, $300,000. As I spoke earlier, it's a great opportunity. I'm not going to name the group, but I'm going to say this. There are certain groups right now that are moving lots of their investments from Vancouver to Yukon, investing in everything. Why? And I asked the individual, I said, why do you do that? And they said, because it's a better return to our investment in Yukon, especially anything that has to do with properties. But by the way, there is no manufacturing in Yukon. Maybe there are a couple of places, Northern Windows and some other things. Everything is imported, brought from Vancouver, right? So services, manufacturing. You have an idea? Explore it. The Business Nominee Program, it's a great opportunity for investment, and also in the process, you'll receive also your permanent residency. We can move on. A couple of businesses that were established in the last, I'm going to say 2-3 years. Aurora Car Rental, so rental cars. People were there are 400,000 tourists passing through Yukon, and there were only 2 rental cars. Most tourists, they would come and say, I cannot rent a vehicle. I want a vehicle. And, so here you go. Aurora Car Rental now is going to address the demand? No, but at least is improving. Beautiful laser and aesthetics. That's hair, like a spa type thing. Big game outfitting. Trump's son, his favorite place to hunt is in Yukon. And every year he comes and he hunts sheep, moose. If you like outdoors, that's a great place to start an outfitting company. Enviro Clean Dry Cleaners. There was only one dry cleaning place. And when the government of Canada was trying to rewrite the book on boil makers, they said the only functioning boiler that was like from the 40s was in Yukon. So they sent somebody to study it, to put it. So let's put it this way. I had a couple of suits that when I took them there for dry cleaning, they came like they had chicken pox. Of course, non-usable anymore. So it became my crusade to open dry cleaning that, by the way, the equipment comes from Italy, is environmental clean, are two Chinese guys who started the business, and it looks amazing. It looks like a hospital room, like completely. Flat Creek Farm, basically they are looking at growing mushrooms, like the expensive type of mushrooms used for restaurants. Total fire protection, again, another business. Yukon Vogue Interiors, furnitures. There are only two furniture stores, which they're kind of the box retails, Ashley Furnitures and The Brick. But don't forget that Yukon has also a very high income per capita, right? You have two individuals, a couple, one working for the federal government, the other one working for the territorial government. That's over $250,000. Let's say no kids, no expenses. That's lots of disposable income. Renovations, furnitures, eating. Yukoners like to eat out, right? So those are a couple of examples of businesses that were started within the last 2 years through the business nominee program. So we can move to the next one. Yukon Community Program, it's a very cool program. It's mostly for communities, the same like the nominee program, with the exception that the employers don't need to advertise. So you approach an employer on your own. The employer doesn't need to demonstrate that no Canadian was available. And the beauty is that you can do 3 jobs for the same employer, or you can you can work for 3 different employers. So let's say in communities where part-time or seasonal work is the norm, is very helpful for employers to say, you're going to work for me in summer and you're going to work for him in winter. As long as you do the full-time hours, it doesn't matter. There is, what I'm trying to say, there is lots of flexibility. So you can do 3 different jobs. You can be the front desk clerk, you can be the bartender, and you can be also the assistant manager. So 3 different knock codes for the same employer, or 3 different employers. Okay, we can move on. Francophone. Yukon is the 3rd largest jurisdictions for Francophones. Very few people know that. We can move on. Yukon immigration strategy. We are launching in hopefully this fall our next 10 years immigration strategy. Very exciting, very innovative, lots of new programs. I think also the federal government is looking at eventually launching a northern immigration strategy that's going to involve lots of consultations with Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. So very exciting times in the coming years. Yeah, we can move on. So that's the title of our new immigration strategy, Stronger Together, Immigration, Thriving Communities, and the Growing Economy. Those are kind of the main headings of the strategy: effective and efficient immigration programming, adapt to current and future market needs, so focus on labor, on economic growth, valuing newcomers to improve retention and acknowledge workers' rights. We are always been on ensuring that the rights of newcomers, of temporary foreign workers, new nominees are respected, and the employers actually do what they are supposed to do. Showcasing our strengths to market the Yukon's exceptional environment and economy. Thank you.
Thanks.
And we can move on. Yukon was one of the first jurisdiction in Canada to show support to the Ukrainian community. We started the Ukrainian family support desk, and basically matching Ukrainians with jobs and housing. We can move through that. We can move through that. Yukon Partnership Immigration Community. This is something I thought is very important for us, and I started this Yukon Partnership where I meet regularly with the most significant employers, the large employers, and I listen to their needs, and I also am able to sometimes match them with individuals. We work very close what we are doing, and it's been very successful. We can move on. And of course, Yukon signed a memorandum of understanding with the government of the Philippines that's supposed to be ratified, signed officially by the premier. By the premier is the third one from the left. Now the consul general, the one in green, is the ambassador of the Philippines. And actually that was when the premier met the consul general at the Filipino consulate, right? And Minister Bello was in New York when we actually signed the memorandum of understanding. We can move on. And we are using the MOU with the Philippines as a guideline for signing an MOU with the government of Indonesia. And we can move on. And of course, here is other highlights. And we have, of course, the premier with His Excellency, the Consul General, and the Consul General of Thailand, and moi, with the Consul General of China and India. And we can move on through this. Thank you.
Give him a round of applause. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I know that I don't want to steal like everybody's time, to give a question to you. But I think from the perspective you share with us today, I think I don't want maybe I don't have to say more opportunity about Yukon because you explain in very comprehensive manners. So I would like to attract all colleagues here and also online who are attending online today, I think, to deliver question to Marius, because now you meet the right person. This is very what we call it premium opportunity, golden opportunity for all Indonesian people here in our jurisdictions to have someone like him who has been expert in the immigration, I think, in the government, in the private business. So please take your opportunity to deliver the question. But before that, I would like to just underline one thing. This is, since I've been living here in Canada, almost 2 years now, most of our young fellows, when I ask them, what is the most matters, I think, the most issue make you very longing for Indonesia? They said one question about the food and gathering, like Indonesian way. I know that, for some of you, currently only 20 Indonesian people in Yukon, but they are in good shape, but they are in good life. Some of them, one of them, become as the stewardess of Air North. Two of them, in the government, and the rest of them, they're working in the good environment. So I hope that maybe in the future we could see more Indonesian go to Yukon, work there, or for some of you who don't have an intention yet to work there, at least please have experience to make a trip to Yukon. So that's my message, strong message to all of you here. And then just My colleague Director Marius just mentioned about, I think, there are many schemes, either Yukon mini program, Yukon work community,
Yukon Community Pilot. Yeah.
many schemes. So you can choose what path that you would like to pursue. So again, I think maybe later on during the question and answer session, I will ask Gracia, to guide this question. But if any question already in the room, so maybe
I just wanted a couple of things that I think are important for people here. Like, first of all, Yukon is very well connected to Vancouver via Air North, Air Canada. In summer, you have WestJet. And there are direct flights also from Europe via Condor flights, which is flies from Frankfurt to Whitehorse. There is also the proximity. Why I'm saying is so important, because for people who want to do business, the proximity to Alaska, right? So if you start a business in Yukon, don't think just 40,000, it's peanuts, but think in terms of how I can do business in Alaska or northern BC, which are very close by. The other is the current government is investing tremendously in upgrading the pier at Skagway Port. So Yukon will have direct access, quick access to Asia, China, and so on and so forth. So here is another opportunity. It's an hour and a half from Yukon to Skagway in Alaska, right? So very easy access. There is also, like you said, Your Excellency, with Indonesian, they like their Indonesian food. I'm gonna quote Harry Ford, who said, "Build it and they will come." Move there, start an Indonesian restaurant that we don't have, and I guarantee you, for the first person who's gonna start that business there, is gonna be completely packed, because, as I said, it's not only Yukoners, but there is now the largest group that's coming through the nominee program are people from India. Large numbers, and all of them very young, very entrepreneurial. I love that about them. Everybody is like, what kind of business can I do? Where can I, and they also love Indonesian food. I guarantee you, maybe I'll start myself. I'll hire one of them as a cook, and I'll start a restaurant in Indonesian. There is no Indonesian food there, right? So, but I would like you to think beyond restaurants, think big, because we live in a global world. It doesn't matter where you live nowadays. Do you want to live in Vancouver, spending an hour or an hour and a half commuting to a place where you're gonna do what? Go in front of a computer that you can do it from your home, or you can do it from your beautiful cabin looking over. By the way, you know where is the tallest mountain in Canada? Big mistake. Common mistake, even with Canadians, is actually Mount Logan, which is in Yukon, right? Mount Logan. So what I'm saying is, you sit there and you look in the middle of nowhere, and now, thanks to Elon Musk, you can access internet anywhere, right? So what's preventing you than staying in a $1 million one-bedroom condo overlooking somebody else's condo, or looking at the world and wildlife and doing exactly what you would be doing here? Okay, so, and I know with the young people nowadays, it's about the quality of life, right? It's about quality of life. And Yukon, it's located, if you flatten the map of the world, you flatten it, Whitehorse, it's almost in the center of the world. And there was a friend of mine who lives in Toronto who did a comparison between Singapore and Whitehorse. That Whitehorse has the capability in the future to become Singapore. And why? It's because of its geopolitical location, right? It's close to Asia. It's the gateway to the Arctic. It's close to Vancouver. It's got also, Yukon also has a port to the Arctic Ocean. It's Hershey Island that's going to be developed. So, and don't think next week, don't think next year, don't think PR, think 10 years from now. And think always, what do you want to do? Because Indonesia is a beautiful country. I mean, I would prefer, does anybody want to change roles for about 3 months? And by the way, I'll take my pick in November, December, January. But it's a beautiful country. But you have to ask yourself, why do I want to move to Canada, right? And if I move to Canada, what's in it for me? And as the Consul General was saying, he would like to see a growing community of young people, entrepreneurial, who, because we live in the global village. You know, you can live here for 6 months and Indonesia for another 6 months and so on.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? Yes.
So there is question. We can touch up it.
Okay, sure. So before I give the floor to the participants here, let me just read out a couple of few questions that are listed in the screen.
Certainly.
So we have a question from Fender Halim. He mentioned, his question is, if you want to move to Yukon, can you describe the procedures, specifically how to get there? Like, can you simplify it?
You could take the airplane, or you can drive. I don't know, like, sorry. Like what, like.
And then, what about a
Bring a jacket, bring a thick jacket, just in case.
And then what about accommodation? Would
Yes.
be something that you provide. You mentioned that in your, to make it more attractive for
Employers say,
employers,
yeah.
in the statement letter,
Yeah.
you should mention that, you already have options for housing and
yeah.
whatnot. But what
Yeah.
if those who wants to move to Yukon don't have a clue, right?
Yes.
They know what they want, they
Yeah.
know their skills, but like you have experienced,
Yeah.
most people, they heard about Yukon,
Mhm.
right? It's cold,
Yeah.
the Northern Lights,
Yeah.
but nobody knows exactly what's happening in Yukon. Maybe right now their minds are open, but
Yes. So let's put it this way. Winter starts, as I said, October. Temperatures are usually -17 to -22 throughout the winter. It will we will have at least a week or two of -30, -32, -33. But for the rest of the winter is not very different than, as I said, Prince George, BC. It's very dry, so less heavy snow. But yes, you need a jacket, a thick jacket. Now, the most beautiful summers I'm gonna say, in the world, are in Yukon, and that's why now we are facing a bit of a housing crunch, because before, 20 years ago, as soon as you retired, your U-Haul truck was in front of your house and you are moving to Kelowna or to Victoria. Now people, they tend to stay. And they go in winter to Arizona, to Mexico, to Kelowna. But summers, why? Because summers are 32 degrees, it's dry, it's not humidity, it's beautiful. Now, with the housing, what I would suggest for somebody who's serious to move to Yukon, come for a visit. Take a look around. Develop some relationships with young people there, contacts. Always finding a place is not different than anywhere else. Facebook, Kijiji. Yeah, exactly. Right. The same thing. People advertise. Don't take long long accommodations. Just take rent for a short period, and once you are there, like it's one of these weird things, and you guys, you can explain to me. It's everybody's complaining about housing shortages, but nobody is homeless. You know what I mean? Like somehow everybody manages to find a place. Now, some people, they are okay to have roommates. Some people, they like their privacy. But always I say, come there, see on the ground what's the situation. There are a small group of Indonesian people. I don't know if you or His Excellency has their contact, but have a contact person. Like as I said, the Filipinos, they were 50. Now they are over 4,000. Somehow they managed to grow, right? So the same way, there is somebody there, contact them. Hey, can you help me? I'm coming. Can you wait for me? Can I stay at your place for a few days until it's human nature. I don't know. When I travel, I remember when I was younger and I travel, I would see a stranger and say, hey, do you have something available? I can stay at your place. Don't be shy. If you are shy, you'll starve.
Great, thank you.
Oh, but the Consul General told me Indonesian people are very shy, so I shouldn't say that. But now after you spend some time in Canada, you realize that it's by the way, Yukon is very friendly. People still walk on the street and say hello, hi, how are you, this kind of thing. So small town atmosphere.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you. So maybe before we go back to the screen. Okay, so Fender has a follow-up question. So this is about the Yukon Business Nominee Program. You mentioned that there's a minimum investment of 300,000 Canadian dollar, I guess. And so does that include buying the property or the housing?
So, of course, according to IRPA, the Immigration Refugee Protection Act, every business is got to be, the person needs to be actively involved in the business. So buying a house, it's considered passive investment. No, it's got to be a business that the person who is investing the minimum 300,000 has to be actively involved in the management of the business. Now, if you are buying, let's say you are buying a warehouse, and the cost of the warehouse is $1 million. Part of of course, this is great because now you own a property. Is the prices they are going up tremendously, and there is lots of room to grow in Yukon versus investing in properties in Vancouver, where there has to be some ceiling at some point, I hope. So there is lots of room to grow in that area. So a certain part of your investment in the property is going to go towards the investment through the business nominee program, but we are looking into assets. And the key question I will have is how your business is going to contribute to the Yukon economy.
All right, I hope that answers Fender's question. If you have a follow-up question, please feel free to write back or
I like this question there. I'm going to ask. I have a question. Despite all the great benefits of Yukon, can you please share the honest, everything has been honest. What's his name of the person? Robert, everything has been honest. Honest, the downside of Yukon. Fair question. So long winters, long comparing with what you got here, from October to April. Number two, it is isolated, right? If you want to travel to Vancouver, if you drive, it's 3 days. If you fly, it's 2.5 hours. So it is a bit isolated in the big scheme of things. I mean, you are right at the end north of the country, right? Long travel to Toronto, though we have direct flights. Downside, besides the October to April type of thing, and the 2-3 weeks, maybe let's say, like you wanted honest, let's go on the other side and say maybe 3 weeks we have -30. I can't think of anything else, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's not like Vancouver, you have to wear Armani suits, things like that. Meetings happens in jeans and a shirt. Most people drive trucks, not Mercedes and Tesla. There are a couple of people with Teslas there. They survive the winter, so it works. What else? It's not for everybody. I'm not gonna say, I mean, let's be honest. Some people, they like to live in big cities. They like their condo life. They like their Uber treats or whatever they call it. They deliver your food at your door. Absolutely, it's not for everybody. But if you like, if you like to go on a trail and to not have to push people out of your way, Yukon is there. If you like hunting, if you like fishing, I have people who, before they come to work, they go fishing. There are hundreds of lakes around Whitehorse. Yeah, that's kind of downside. And of course, like everywhere else, shortage at the housing market.
How's the internet speed?
No problems.
Oh, no problem.
They are working on a second line as a backup line right now that will be connected. It was one that was through Northwest Territories, and now it's another one that's, so it's good. It's good, you know. Yeah.
Okay. But maybe before we go to the question, I would like to open the opportunity for people attending here to ask directly. Yeah, sure.
So everybody can listen.
Thank you. So my question is hello. Hi. So my question, I would like ask if I'm moving to Yukon and then like I have work in there, I mean like for working in there, and then should I like have a vehicle in there, or do you have like any kind of transportation in there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Of course, there are buses,
Mhm.
and if you want to have your own vehicle, you can purchase your own vehicle. But yeah, there are buses that I think they go up to 12 o'clock at night. There are cabs, taxi. I wish Uber would hear me today and start a service there, because they would do marvelous. Yeah. And the downtown, lots of the businesses are concentrated within the downtown, but let's not forget that there are also communities around Whitehorse, like Carmax, Carcross, Haines Junction, Dawson, which are very small communities, but it's also that northern lifestyle. So Whitehorse is kind of the capital, but don't be scared to live for a couple of years in Dawson. Is awesome, you know, only like 4,000 people, 3,000 people. The feedback I got from other nominees, mostly Filipinos, but also from Jamaica, they absolutely love it. They said we would never move to Whitehorse. They love that close knit type of lifestyle. So it varies from person to person, what type of a personality you have, right? So yeah, just to answer your question, there are lots of ways of
Okay, thank
transportation,
you.
and you're gonna have lots of friends,
Sure.
and they will drive you around, no problems.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Or Ariel?
Yeah, exactly.
No, Carol.
Introduce yourself and then your name.
Hi, my name is Zafir. I'm currently working in the trades, so I would like to know, are there a lot of opportunities for the trades in Yukon? I'm currently being an electrician, so I would like to know how much growth is there?
You would, if you go public with your statement, you have a lineup. You will be interviewing the employers, not they will interview you. It's a huge demand. Probably the mines, Victoria Gold, would love to hear from you. If you like to start, how old are you? Oh my God, 21. You'll be making six-figure salary, probably like that. If you are a certified electrician. I used to, in one of my previous life, I used to be an employment and career counselor. And during that time, everybody wanted to go to university, right? Nobody wanted to go into trades anymore. And a friend of mine who was an electrician, just happened by trade, and was doing working for the government, trying to attract people in trades. I remember him, the way he used to do. I would go to schools and talk about opportunities, employment, and labor market trends, and so on and so forth. And he would come during recess in a Lamborghini, red Lamborghini. Imagine all the kids in the school would be like, "Who's this guy?" Right? Very looking very sharp, and he would come and say, "Yeah, I'm an electrician." And people would be like, "You driving the Lamborghini?" And yeah, and that was his hook. And I'm talking late 90s, early 2000, when now absolutely as a trade person, you would be working immediately for, probably you would be interviewing employers. Huge demand of trades, but the demand of trades is not only in Yukon. It's also in Alberta, is also in BC. So in your case is, I think, not finding a job is going to be the problem. The question is who you want to work for, how much they pay, what are the benefits, and hopefully as a young person like you, when do you want to start your own company, right? So good for you. Yeah, sure.
How long it is to, since you apply, right, for the work permit and LMIA and things like that.
There is no LMIA with the nominee program. So the LMIA is for federal programs, right? It's a federally administered program. It's for temporary workers. The nominee program is LMIA exempt, so there is no LMIA. The employer just makes basically application. I need somebody. I tried to find a Canadian or a permanent resident. I couldn't find them. I found this person from Indonesia. I want to hire them. That's basically what the nominee program. It's a path towards permanent residency.
I think you mentioned about this, but I think it's.
Yeah, the
great
Yukon
for
right now, when we are on paper-based application,
Yeah.
it took 8 weeks, was the fastest in Canada. I never do half measures. We are the best, the fastest, the most transparent. What else, Gracia? You tell me.
Most
I don't
innovative.
want to, but now that we are finally digital, I'm gonna say the application probably is gonna take 2 weeks. 2 weeks, right?
So I hope that answers your question, Stella. I think you mentioned this too. So once you get the work permit, when can you apply for PR? Maybe you can repeat.
In some day, if you are really in a rush.
So I hope that answers your question, Stella. If not, feel free to just raise your hand and maybe pose the question directly. And then we have a question from Steffi. What is the best step to immigrate to Yukon? And is it through finding a job, then applying for a work permit, or applying for a work permit first?
In order to apply for a work permit, you need a job offer. Like all the nominee programs in whole Canada, they're based on, it's an economic program. So you need a job offer from an employer. Some people, you can apply through the express entry. Express entry is only for people with skilled workers, right? So you have a combination of education and work experience. So you apply on the express entry website, and then we do have also an express entry program where if the job is located in Yukon, we will vet you and you will get the 600 points necessary for an ITA, which is an invitation to apply for permanent residency. So there are a number of venues, and as you can see, and you will see more and more, that Canada is opening up the streams for people to access immigration programs. So that's the good news. So the nominee program is one. The express entry, the federal express entry could be another program. The temporary foreign work program is for people who are here on a temporary basis. So it depends from individual to individual, right? Like some people, they come on a postgraduate work permit. The visitors now, they can apply for work permits within Canada. So it's very hard to give an answer that it varies from individual on each situation varies and so on and so forth. But remember, the nominee programs are economic programs. You need a job offer from an employer. The temporary foreign, so don't confuse the nominee program with the temporary foreign work program. That's the key.
I hope that's clear. So before we go back to the floor, there's just one more question. I think this is very good. This is a very pertinent question. So there's a question from Mr. James here. He is someone from a certain age class, so he's over 45, and he has experience in the tourism industry, and he would like to know whether he has an opportunity to immigrate to Yukon with his background, with his age class. Is it something that would be favorable for him to, and would be possible for him?
James, my friend, are you calling yourself old at 45? You know, in Canada, the 45 is the new 35. So no, we don't have an age limit. You are still very young. And with experience in tourism, you will probably have absolutely no problem finding a job in Yukon.
Okay, there you go, James. Hope you will be applying to the program then.
Yes.
So anyways, now we're gonna throw back the opportunity to the floor to raise questions. Let's show Marius here, we're not shy. So any takers?
Yes. Now you can ask me directly.
Shortest skill, sorry, shortest skill.
Shortages, skilled
Yeah,
shortages
that
in
they are
any
looking for economic development.
which areas the skill shortages are?
Yes, in Yukon. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes. I would say probably the largest area is food service industry. So fast food restaurants, Tim Horton, McDonald's, anything kitchen and front, huge shortages. Anything that is related to the hospitality industry, from hotels, front desk, front clerks, housekeeping, maintenance, huge. Anybody, handyman, handy person, like that. travel industry, anything with guiding, taking clients in the fishing, hunting, these type of things. Retail, again, big shortages in that area. Healthcare, nurses, nurses aides, working with elderly, working in senior homes, anything that has to do with healthcare, huge demand. From time to time, there is anything that has to do with IT. And it's not so much if you are a computer programmer, it's more ability to work with different type of programs. Big demand in finance. You know, in life, I said you can fake many things. One thing you cannot fake is your accounting or background with numbers, right? You either know it or you don't know it. And there are lots of opportunities. I forgot to mention that there are lots of opportunities also with First Nation governments, because you have to remember in most provinces, you have the federal government, then you have the provincial government, and then you have the city level, where in Yukon there is another level, which is the First Nation governments, which the wages are very similar to the territorial government, and they have HR departments, they have economic development departments, they have education, health, and so on and so forth. So it's another layer of government, and that's where there are job opportunities. Anything that had to do with mechanics, heavy equipment operators, aircraft maintenance, anything that in that area, lots of demand. So tourism, retail, food, hospitality, tour guides, heavy equipment, construction, trades, health. Yes.
So thank you. That's Steffi, right? Oh, thank you, Steffi. So we have two people that raised hand in the screen in the
On the
Zoom.
screen, yeah.
So I'll give the opportunity. I think I heard it was Linda and Stella. I'm going to give the first opportunity to Linda first. Maybe you could now ask your question directly.
Yeah, Grace, thank you for the opportunity to ask. I have a few friends join in this event. They are in Indonesia right now. So, what does the process do? They have to come as a tourist, or they apply the link that you're gonna give at the online to apply the job first. So, which one you advise to them?
So thank you for your question, Linda. It's a good question. So there are a number of ways. If, for example, they would find a job with an employer here via connections or applying online, the employer would nominate them from overseas, and the employer obligation is to pay for the airfare for the principal applicant. Now, depending how, if they are in a rush, they say, you know what, we made up our mind, we want to come to Canada. So they could come as visitors, and depending on what type of occupations they have. And I'm going to say another thing, Linda, is not only what type of occupation or in what type of occupation you are involved, but also what are your expectations? Because if you are a nurse and your expectations is to work in Canada as a nurse, I have some bad news to you, that probably the chances are very slim, because you have to go through the regulatory process, which takes time. Or if you are an engineer, anything that's regulated. So, but if you say, you know what, I'm willing to work in a senior home as a caregiver or nurses as aide, as a nurse's aide, if that's your it's your expectations, then yeah, your chances to find a job is very quick. So what are your occupation skills, education? And also very important, I think, is what are your expectations?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you. I now give the floor to Stella. You can now pose your question directly to Marius.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you, Stella? It's
I'm
one of
still
my
alive.
favorite names, Stella.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. And thank you for the opportunity. I'm so exciting. I cannot wait to ask you. So, I have experience working in the hospitality and then food industry. But the thing is, I would like to go there. I'm so exciting. Um,
So where
so
are
I just
you
wa-
right now, Stella?
in Calgary.
Okay, I used to live in Calgary. Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, if I'm not wrong, that I can apply online, and then you're gonna share the link, and then after that, when I get approved, what is the condition to get approved?
Approved is you have minimum 6 months experience in that job.
Okay.
Did you do the IELTS test already?
Yes.
What was your what were your scores?
I forgot. It's been long time.
Okay, if you took the IELTS test 2 years, more than 2 years ago, you need to retake it. I
Okay.
would suggest to take it in Calgary because in Whitehorse we don't have an IELTS center. We have only CELPIP. Though some
Okay.
people they say CELPIP is easier than IELTS. So I don't know. But you need level 4. And if you've been here in Canada for a while, I'm sure you will have no problem. So language, experience, 6 months experience in the occupation,
Yeah.
and that's it.
So the point for the English test, self-pip, let's see, is you just need only 4.
4.
Okay.
Or 6 if it's a skill job. Let's say you
Yeah.
apply as a manager, right? So then you'll need level 6.
Yes. Okay. And then the next question is like, so 6 month experience, and then the English test, and then I get the approve. I would like to know that processing time when I get the approve. How long that I can go to Yukon?
Processing time for approval into the nominee program or processing time for PR approval?
Nominee program.
Nominee program. As I said, now we are in the process of moving into online applications.
Yes.
So it's kind of new for me. We are right now in the soft launch. We have about 12 employers who are applying online just to make sure all the kinks are taken care of. But I'm going to say that probably the processing time for an application is going to be 2 weeks.
Okay. Oh, wow. So fast. 2 weeks. Okay.
Why to keep it there? We are not the archives.
I know.
You met the requirements. Here we go. We issued the letters, apply for the work permit. Because you already have a work permit, it's very easy to go to the port of entry, which is Fraser. It's about an hour and a half from Whitehorse, and you get the new work permit right there.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
One last question. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's why we are here tonight.
Yeah, thank you. So last question is for all the work paper is gonna be the owner is the one hiring me is gonna be their responsibility to pay everything, or is the
No, only if you
candidate?
are in only if you are in Indonesia, the
Okay.
employer is obligated to pay for the airfare. But because you are
Okay.
in Calgary, you're on your own.
Okay. How about the paperwork?
The way it works, the employer does their side of the application, which is the employer application. Like, of course, employers, they still need to qualify for the program. They did the advertisement, they paid the right wages,
Yes.
they
Yes.
yada yada yada, and you do your side of the application, which is, again, what's your name, do you have this, do you have that. It's very, so far, I attended only about 1 or 2 sessions for the new program just to get an idea. It's very intuitive. So you don't need an immigration consultant. You don't need anybody. If you are computer literate, you should be okay to do it.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much for all the
My
answer.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Uh, thank you guys and have a good night.
Yes, you are Linda. You are missing all the good food the consulate put together here for you guys. So I'm sorry for you.
That's okay. Next time we gonna visit Mr. Hendra to Vancouver.
Yes.
Okay, once again, thank you, sir. Thank you,
Take
Gracia.
care, Linda.
You
All the
too.
best.
Thank you, Stella.
All the
Bye.
best. Oh, Stella. Sorry, Linda. Well, I was
No worries.
Stella.
Bye.
Okay, so there are a couple more questions on the screen. Hopefully, we can finish them all. Otherwise, maybe due to time, we might have to cut short.
It's up
But
to you.
there's a couple of questions that's very interesting and very relevant as well. How about are there any restrictions regarding people who have different backgrounds, educational background, in applying for jobs that are different from their academic background?
No, the education. So if the educational background is a requirement for the position, i.e. nursing, you are not gonna work as a nurse if your background is you're I don't know, a teacher. You know, so the educational background needs to match the occupation for regulated occupations. But our own requirement, and we go by the job bank or job bank of Canada, the minimum requirement is grade 12 or equivalency. And then the most important is the work experience, right? If you worked as hit me with something hard.
As a banker.
As a banker, like as a banker, as in banking teller.
Maybe in the accounting department.
Okay, so accounting. So the occupation is accounting, right? So accounting is a regulated occupation. The process of being accredited in Canada is pretty straightforward. It's not that complicated. Now they merge is one regulator, right? So you might not be able to work as an accountant, but you might be able to work as a bookkeeper. So that's why you remember we were talking about what are your expectations, right? Because with the being an architect, being an engineer, being a doctor, you remember the story I told you about the lady from Indonesia
Yes,
who
I think
is,
she's here.
oh, she's here. Hello, hello.
Bigger opportunity.
Doctor
It's down
there.
Yeah, very.
But she, if you expect to practice medicine the moment you come to Canada, I'm gonna say sorry, no. But if you are willing to work in an administrative capacity while you complete your certification, right, through the medical association, then that's not a problem, right? It is what it is, right? So that's why I remember when and I have to say 20 years ago, to get into certain occupations such as physicians was almost impossible. Was easier for somebody to come here and start from scratch. Now because of what happened during COVID, and finally the government of Canada realizing that, you know, physicians in many countries, they are as good trained, if not better, than in Canada. You will see in the next couple of years professions, especially in healthcare, being expedited, where they're going to be able to enter into the profession much faster.
All
Yeah.
right. So we will circle back to this is a Hafiz question, I think, regarding, so he's a very specific background. His academic background is in political science. Would it enable him to work in something like the agriculture industry?
Enable him, like, first of all,
Is there any
political
restriction?
science degree, I don't know how that is related to agriculture, but this is Canada. You know, things happen and you have an interest in growing agriculture. Now, I think probably you can work for the agricultural department in the government, more the type of policy, that type of thing, rather than being a specialist. You know, I have people working for me who have degrees in accounting and they work in immigration. So they specialized in the profession. So absolutely, political science, you could work in any department in government at different levels, and managers, they're not specialist, they're generalist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But if he really wants specifically to work in agriculture, sure,
It's possible.
of course it is possible.
Okay.
Yeah, of course it is
Just the
possible.
work experience has to match.
No. So let's say because agriculture in Yukon is managed by the government. So his first step would be to get a job with the government. And so far, the Yukon government is a bit reluctant going with people through the nominee program. I'm still educating them that there are many other governments who use nominees to access to enter into the government. But I think the healthcare now is kind of educating them that if they cannot fill a job, they could access through the nominee program. So yeah.
Great, thank you. So I hope that answers your question, Hafiz. We can go to Zaldi's question. So this is Zaldi. I think I'm just gonna give the floor to you
I see her.
directly to pose your question to Marius. Go ahead, Zaldi.
Hello, Mr. Matthews.
Hi,
Hello, Mr. Matthews. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. Okay. Just want to ask you a question. Just a couple weeks ago, I have fulfilled the form in the express entry, and I have the reply from the agency that I am eligible to work in the Canada. As an information, I have a background in civil engineering and construction industry. Just want to ask you the question, sir. Is there any equivalent program that verify my bachelor certificate that I am eligible to work as an engineer in Yukon or in Canada? Thank you, sir.
Yes. So civil engineers is again a regulated occupation. So you basically, if you went through the express entry, the federal government basically, they said you got the human capital to
Yes.
contribute to the Canadian economy, but you will get a certain amount of points. If you are asking me this question now, that means that your points you got were not enough for you, for the system to generate an ITA, and you need a job offer from a Canadian employer. Now, a Canadian employer will offer you a job offer only if you would be willing to work in a lower position, or because to be an engineer in Canada, it's a regulated occupation. So either wherever you are, probably in Indonesia, you need to start the process of having your credentials recognized in Canada as an engineer, and then you will have no problem getting a job here, or accepting a job offer for a lower level that's not regulated, and while working in that position, you can start the process of having your credentials recognized. Did I answer your question?
Thank you, sir. Just one last question. So right now I'm in Indonesia. Uh, right now I have a certification as an associate expert in building engineer in Indonesia. Can you just explain to me if there is an institution in Indonesia or in the Asian region that can verify, or there is a equivalent program, I mean in some specific institution that can verify my certification as a professional engineer like that, sir? Because I just have only certificate. I'm just certified in Indonesia like this. If there is any institution like that, like this. Thank you, sir.
So I think probably the best bet for you will be to contact one of the agencies that deal specifically with the recognition of foreign credentials. So here in BC is called ISIS, and is the International Services International Credential something Association. It's located in BCIT. Or you can go to Alberta, it's called IQUAS, Alberta International Qualifications Recognition. And you can ask for an assessment of your credentials, which is going to give you an idea of the pathway you need to take in order to have your credentials recognized. There is another one in Ontario, it's called WES. So look at recognition of foreign credentials in Canada. And as I said, the one here in BC, which is located in BCIT building, is called ISIS, International Services in something. By the way, it's not spelled like ISIS, the ISIS that we don't want to mention. It's got some double S's there, but International Credential and Recognition, British Columbia, and it's going to direct you to that agency. All right.
Okay, thank you, Zaldi. We will move on to, I think we can skip Steffi because you've asked her question directly. We'll now head on to Lely. So she is asking about access to Yukon. So is it only by air? How can you get there through, land transportation? So if you could speak more about it, because I think her concern is about accessibility, connectivity, as well as overhead costs for businesses who wants to establish, and how easy it is in terms of connectivity across Canada.
That's a very good question. So by air, I already mentioned the airlines that right now fly. They have direct flights to Yukon. You can fly directly from Ottawa, from Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and so forth. By road, as I said, it's whatever, Alaska Highway. If I drove from Yukon from Whitehorse to Vancouver. It took me 1 day to Fort Nelson, Prince George, second day, Prince George, Vancouver, third day. So 3 legs, I was in Vancouver. So And of course, you can drive from Edmonton. You can drive. So there is a highway that's taking you to Whitehorse, and from Whitehorse, you can go into United States, either to Anchorage or Fairbanks. And by the way, it's the most, if you guys don't do anything and you forget everything I said today, you got to travel from Whitehorse to Alaska, Haines, Alaska, the most beautiful place, nicer than Yukon, the nicest place in the world. It looks like northern version of Norway, fjords and gulfs and mountains. And so Haines, Alaska, and also the top of the world highway from Dawson to United States, one of the most beautiful highways in the world for travel, people who like to travel. So yeah, so lots of connections. There is a ferry. You can take a ferry from Prince Rupert to Haines, Alaska. And from Haines, Alaska, it's about 4 hours drive to Whitehorse. Yeah, so here you go, by boat, by air, by car, and lots of people, by the way, lots of people, they bike. I'm serious. I've seen people from Vancouver, from United States.
Motorbike, you mean, right?
No, regular bikes, you know, those health conscious, you know, I want to go into the Guinness Book of Record. From my trip, like how I fell in love with Yukon. Very 2 minutes. I know you are on a time thing here. So when I came to Canada, I was about 17, and I wanted to go to the most southern part of the continent and to the most northern part of the continent. And so the most southern part is in Paraguay, and the most northern part, where basically the land finishes and it's the Arctic Ocean, is called Taktayak. Now there is a highway or a road. Before it wasn't a road, you could only fly. So anyway, so I came, and one day I'm having coffee with a friend, and he says, you know what, this guy used to be a sailor. He liked to read about cultures and First Nations, and always loved listening to me to those stories. So he said, you know what, I lost the contract. He was working in forestry in Prince George. I lost the contract. I have about a month free. Would you like to go to Taktayak? So I said, when? Half an hour? So I said, okay, give me a few minutes to talk with my boss to see if I can. Anyway, long story short, we drove from Prince George to Whitehorse, Dawson. From Dawson, we took the highway to in Northwest Territories, Mackenzie. We took the ferry from Mackenzie to Inuvik, which is in Northwest Territories. And from Inuvik, we flew to Taktayak. So then I came back, and then from Dawson, we drove to Fairbanks. And as I said, the most amazing highway, top of the world highway. You drive here, and down there, it's just mountain. We drove from Dawson, top of the world highway. We got into United States, drove to Fairbanks to Anchorage, Anchorage back into BC. And I came home and I said, this is the place I want to be. And that moment after that trip, I said, this is the place I want to be. And within about a year, I had a job with Yukon College, and the rest is history.
And that's why you moved from Prince George, right?
I moved from Prince George, yeah.
Okay, how inspiring. I think also you talked about Dr. Betty, who
I see her. Hello.
be
Yeah, or hello.
Betty Dr. Betty, would you like to pose your question directly?
Hello,
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Mr. Marius.
I'm Marius, not Mr. Marius. There is no Mr. Marius.
Okay, sir. Sir, I'm too much excited. I want to apply for a job in Canada for healthcare position as administrative. My current problem is only that about IELTS certificate, so I will retake that IELTS.
So you're gonna need
How I
level
can
6.
find, yeah?
Level 6, because you
Oh,
are
level
applying
6.
in you are applying in professional position, so skilled position. You'll need level 6. I will also encourage you to do another thing, to apply on the express entry under the
Express
category
entry.
based selection, which I send you the
Mm.
information. You remember I sent you the information that this
Yeah.
new category was introduced by Canada a few weeks ago.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so so my minimum requirement is 6, right? Okay,
Level 6, yes.
level 6. Okay, thank you, sir.
You're very welcome and good luck. And as I said, with the new category-based selection, you might be able to, especially if you have a job offer from Yukon, you'll get the extra 600 points. But with the new category, you might be able to qualify on your own to immigrate to Canada without, you know, I mean, I'm glad to hear that your choice is Yukon, but you might, somewhere in your heart, you might want to be in Vancouver or Toronto. I'm just saying, not putting any pressure, but if you come to Yukon, definitely stop by.
Okay, okay, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Okay,
Dr.
thank you.
Can we scroll down if we have more? Oh, that's great. We actually finished. Oh, okay, Sultan. Okay, let us give the opportunity for Sultan to pose this question. Sultan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I would like to ask if we are still have our working permit visa in let's say here in Vancouver, and we would like to apply for a nominee program. What will happen to our current visa, or do we have to wait until our visa expire, or at least, you know, 1 month before expire and apply, or we can directly apply for the nominee program? Thank you.
So Sultan, two things. A visa is a traveling document. A work permit is a document that allows you to work legally in Canada. So this being said, can you repeat what do you want to know? Like, what's the question? So what's your current status in Canada? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I just trying to unmute, but it wasn't working. Yeah. I have working permit visa here now as a co-ops. Yeah, that's why I asked that. Do we have to wait for our, you know, working do we have to wait until our working permit expired, or?
Okay, so you are an international student.
Yes, I am in.
And right now you are doing a co-op.
Yes.
Are you going to get, after complete the co-op, are you going to get a postgraduate work permit?
I don't think so.
So you are studying at Young Institute?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I
All right.
just couldn't make it to the Councilor
Yeah,
Jackie.
no worries. So basically, you have a couple of options. One is trying to find yourself a job,
Mhm.
and the employer to nominate you, and the chances to obtain it here in BC are pretty slim, because it's kind of everybody who's coming to Canada wants to be here, right?
Yeah.
So now you have to be a bit strategic. I don't know how much time you still have on your international student visa, but at the end of the visa, don't panic. You can apply for a visitor visa. And
Okay.
it's very simple. You can go to any kind of immigration consultant, and they will change your international student to a visitor visa. And as a visitor now, you can apply for a work permit. And then you can have a number of options at your disposal. If you really want to stay here in Yukon, in BC, then you will find employers who are willing to hire temporary foreign workers. So you can, again, very easy process. Employers are, of course, way more willing to hire temporary foreign workers, because it gives them about 2 years of somebody's time. So now the advantage to you is that it gives you 2 years to kind of figure out what you want to do. And just because you are a temporary foreign worker, it doesn't mean you cannot access, let's say, a nominee program in Yukon, in Manitoba, in Saskatchewan, where it's much easier to go through the nominee program.
Okay,
Like
so
what I'm
so I
saying?
can I can apply for a nominee program in Yukon, even though I'm still in my co-op working permit visa.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As long as you demonstrate that you are almost completed your program, because we don't want to hijack international students from institutions, but you
Exactly.
say, you know what, my co-op is finishing. I'm here on an international student visa, and I found an employer who is willing to nominate me. Then the employer will nominate you right away. But if you are willing to come to Yukon, if not, if you want, you say, you know what, I really like Vancouver, I want to stay here, then probably the best bet will be through the temporary foreign work program. Find an employer to apply for an LMIA, and then you kind of figure out what you want to do next.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, I think we have exhausted all the questions in the screen, on the screen right here. I don't know if anyone from the floor wants, oh, okay, one more. Let's give the opportunity to Farizan.
The guy with nice shirt, I was admiring your shirt. You got style.
My question as well.
Okay.
It will be a bit critical though. So Marius, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
I've actually been to Yukon for 4 days. Whitehorse, beautiful place.
When did you go there?
Was it 2018, 2019? I
So
think
prior to the COVID.
prior to COVID.
Good.
Indeed.
Now
indeed.
that's how people, do you remember what your people in the 60s when Kennedy was shot? Now in our times it's gonna be prior to COVID.
Way back when.
Yes. After COVID.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. So my question to you is regarding the prevalency around biases on Canadian experience. So so I work in the immigrant settlement sector here.
You work in what?
Within the immigrant settlement sector. So I work
Yeah.
at an organization called the Immigrant Employment Council of BC.
Okay.
So we work with employers in BC and gauging their sentiments on hiring skilled immigrants. Now, with employers in BC and in Canada, there is a particular trend of hiring people based on their quote unquote Canadian experience,
Mhm.
in spite of having relatable experience from abroad, they still won't hire immigrants from India, from China, from Japan, from Philippines, or from Indonesia, because they don't have that quote unquote Canadian experience. That would explain some of the people that we have that works in Tim Hortons, Starbucks, or even taxi drivers who were once a business analyst, a project manager, or a computer engineer, jobs that are not regulated, that ended up working survival job, because employers would often have this unwritten rules of Canadian experience. They don't write it in the job postings, but sometimes it's a barrier, right? So my question to you is, in your honest assessment of employers in Yukon, does such thing exist? Do employers expect people to have Canadian experience to get hired? And my second question for you is that with respect to your jobs that are regulated, right? It takes time for people to get certified, recertified. Does the government of Yukon provides micro lending option for people who want to get certified? Because it takes time, right? And they cannot work at their regulated job. They work at Tim Hortons or Starbucks. In the meantime, survival jobs are often mentally draining for engineers to work at that job, right? What kind of assistance do government of Yukon provide to these immigrants in this transition period of their life?
Very good questions. I worked in the settlement sector in BC, in Prince George, for a number of years, so I'm very familiar with the Canadian experience type thing. It's getting better than 20 years ago. I think with the regulated professions are the regulators who are acting as gatekeepers. And I think COVID demonstrated that the Canadian economy would come to a standstill if it wasn't for the temporary foreign workers, period. Just to answer, micro loans used to be a program that the federal government had it a couple of years ago. I'm going to say maybe 10 years ago, where they offer micro loans at low interest for people who are pursuing the recognition of foreign credentials. I don't know if that program is still available. I can find out for you, but I can tell you that for individuals who are permanent residents and they want to pursue, so I came as a nurse. I worked during my nominee program as a nurse's aide. Now I got my PR and I'm kind of caught into, I have a mortgage, I have a family. I'm in that situation where I can't just stop to go full-time to school, and I don't have the finances. Through the labor market programs, the agreements between the federal government and provinces and territories, there are money available with no, you don't have to return it, to take you into the occupation that you can demonstrate that you have the experience. Only for PRs. Now, I know you are talking about nominees or temporary foreign workers. You have to remember that there are no settlement services for temporary foreign workers, correct? Because the Canadian government is saying, why would I invest any money in somebody who's going to go back to their own countries? Now, under the pressure from the sector, the federal government is exploring the possibility to allow settlement services for nominees and international students, because stats are showing that nominees and international students, they want a path towards permanent residency. So why should we not start assisting them early? So that was kind of microloans. I'm not aware. I have to find out if the federal government is offering any subsidies. what was the second question? Okay, the Canadian experience. Now, I'm going to say is going to be from employer to an employer. If somebody has biases, there's nothing you can do. Educate them. If is ignorance, like I never dealt with somebody from another country, I don't know if they can perform or whatever. It's human nature, like I'm just ignorant, then somebody from your organization could go with the person for an interview and say, let me explain you what this person actually has done, what they can do, explain it's not a regulated profession, are you happy with his performance? You have 3 months to decide if you want to keep this person, if they can perform at this level. So educate the employer, and it's got to be a case-by-case situation, right? If the employer, but also you have to remember that if a Canadian with similar experience apply for that job, the employer is obligated to hire the permanent resident or the Canadian citizen. And all countries in the world have this type of policies to provide employment first to their citizens, and if a citizen is not available, then to go to a foreign national. I'm sure if I go to Indonesia and say, I want to work as a director of this, they're going to say, hold on a second, there are about 10 Indonesians who have your experience. So every country has that. Underemployment? I can tell you right now that I did this for the healthcare workers, and I think there were about 30 out of, I don't know, 1,500 that were currently in our database that had healthcare education, working in occupations not related to healthcare. So yeah, we kind of went through the database to find out how many people were actually nurses or medical technicians or this and that, and they were working in other fields. And we are planning to, the premier actually form a task force, which he appointed me to be part of that task force on addressing the healthcare crisis. Yeah. And yeah, we do track. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Just one more question from the screen, and I'm going to allow it. And after this, there's not going to be any more opportunity to pose question, but you will be able to pose your questions through email later on. I will have my team share the email of the Consulate General through the meeting chat here. So any follow-up question, you can direct it to that email. So anyways, without further ado, I'm just going to read it out. So there's a teacher in Indonesia. She's looking towards applying for a job in Canada. She has friends in Canada who has the means to invite her. So she's going to come here for a visitor's permit. So is that possible? And what are the process? I think you talked about this.
Yeah, so visitors right now, they can apply for a work permit within Canada. As a teacher, again, it's a regulated occupation in Yukon. You can apply as a teacher assistant, which it's all enough. Yes, there is a demand for teacher assistants. Yeah, basically come to Canada, come to Yukon, check out the website for teacher assistants, and contact the Department of Education. Always it's what I like also about Yukon is that you actually get to talk with a person rather than online and so on and so forth. You just call the Department of Education. I'm interested. I'm here. Can I meet with somebody and just to chat a little bit about my experience, right? So definitely, yeah. very high probability.
The Yukon experience. So just one follow-up question from her, which I did read before. So what is the level of, I think you talked about this before, but it's good to repeat again. So her question was, what's the level of IELTS that's required for non-professional jobs in Canada?
What's
For
a non-
non-skilled
wha-
workers, the minimum level of IELTS or.
So for the NOC C&D, which are called semi-skilled work jobs, in our nominee program is called critical impact worker. And I'm gonna, if there is a chance to kind of, for a story, quick story, level 4 on CLB, which is the Canadian language benchmark. So the scores, the test scores from IELTS, CELPIP, whatever other test, are translated into a CLB, Canadian language benchmark. So you must have level 4 for semi-skilled occupations, and level 6 for skilled occupation, and level 5 for trades occupations. So you have that, you have the education. Yeah.
Great. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marius.
My pleasure.
I think we've exhausted, all the questions here. For further questions, please do direct them to us, to the Consulate General email. I want to take this opportunity to thank you sincerely for coming here in person and to inspire our talents here, the Indonesian students, the Indonesian diaspora, and friends of Indonesia as well, who are joining in this program. And, hopefully you could come back later on for another informational session. And we can see the interest. There's great interest. You see a lot of people are asking questions and follow-up questions. We have to close the screen to ensure that we actually have time to eat. But anyway.
One more, maybe for the brochure, I think you can,
Yes.
Yeah, I'll leave them with you, and
you
yeah,
can, scan it.
yeah,
Yes.
you can absolutely, you
Yeah,
can
and
keep
we
them and have a
can-
look.
We can also post it later on. Everything, you can find it at the social media of the Consulate General. As you can see, we're very informative. You can always go to our website, all our social media channel, our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatnot. It's all gonna be listed there. We're gonna have contents that would, also allow you the opportunity to revisit some of the information that are here. And I hope later on after this session, throughout the, throughout the networking session, you would be able to also talk more, maybe on a personal basis with Marius here. And yeah,
A bunch of cards. Was the only thing left from my bag, by the way. The guy threw my business cards in the bushes, so I found.
So thank you so much, Marius. I would like to invite everyone to give him a big heart.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Consul General Gracia. It was a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure to see you. And was a very I'm very humbled by you guys and your interest. And please don't hesitate to contact me directly if you have any questions. And we'll be more than happy to meet with you if you come to Yukon. And just talk about your experience in Canada. I sit also on the Human Rights Tribunal in Yukon, so I'm pretty keen on people's experiences. And by the way, I'm also an immigrant. I came here as an immigrant when I was 17, so I'm very familiar with the immigrant experience firsthand. So definitely, I really want people when they come to Canada to have a good experience, to rather than negativity and start your life with this kind of negative experience. Don't let people to ever make you feel that you are a second-class citizen, because this country was built by immigrants. Somebody said some insulting words at one point. I was, as I said, I was telling Gracia now, I'm a bit more tamed. more diplomatic. But somebody said something, and I said my response was, you know what? The only difference between you and I is your grandfather was a bit smarter than mine. You know, so that's the only difference, because everybody came from somewhere at some point, and you guys are amazing and very smart, and you can be, as truly, you can be anything you want to be. Anything you want to be, and don't ever let anybody to make you feel that, what are you doing here? You know, the old spiel about taking the jobs away from Canadians, that's you know, in the archives. So thank you so much.
Thank you.